I'm Natasha Kaufman, and welcome to my podcast, Don't Just Talk, Say Something, Lessons on 20 Years of Business. Over the past 2 decades of running my public relations firm, NKPR, I'm so grateful to have met, worked with, and learned from so many talented industry leaders. And I'm so excited to be able to share their stories and life lessons with all of you on this podcast. This episode is a walk down memory lane. I'm so honored to bring on 2 of my first ever clients at NKPR to discuss what it was like in the early days and how we've all evolved since. Kathyrn Hicks is a marketing guru who specializes in footwear and athletics, working with brands including Sorel, Fila, and Timberland. And Sarah Saso, another marketing expert, has worked in community relations and corporate sponsorship for mega brands such as Green Shield, Manulife, and CIBC. And wait until you hear about some of the things we've gone through together, including sleeping on a hotel floor, a ski accident, and a life-changing book. Here's our conversation. I'm doing this podcast because I very much want people to learn and discover that and realize that NKPR wasn't built in a day and wasn't built because of one person. It's very much a journey for all of us. And I certainly would not be here today if it wasn't for both of you. You both took a chance on a new agency, a new person starting an agency, and I want to talk about that a little bit. And I started working with both of you almost around the same time. So maybe I'll start with Sarah because I tell this story a lot. I had left a previous agency. You and I had worked, you were working at CIBC at the time, and I had worked at this particular agency. I left there. And I left there because I don't think I was aligned as far as like their ethics and integrity. And I felt like I wanted to pick and choose who I worked with and what I worked on. And so I started my own thing, not necessarily realizing it was going to be an agency. I thought I was freelancing until I got the phone call from you. It was December 23rd, just before Christmas. I get a phone call from Sarah. I remember I just got a new puppy and I'm walking him down the street in Rosedale. And Sarah calls and says, I have a project for you. In that manner, I have a project for you. We need to do a press conference in Montreal in 10 days, and I want you to lead it. Are you up for it? Do you remember that?
I do remember
that. And I was thinking, oh my God. I didn't have any staff. It was just me. And I'm like, a press conference and Montreal. So English and French speaking. And it's CIBC, one of the largest banks in Canada. And I remember saying to you, can you give me a minute? Can I call you back? And I was terrified because I thought, can I do this? And I didn't want to let you down. And then I think I called you back 20 minutes later and I said, yeah, no problem. I absolutely can do it. And I figured it out. It was a huge success. And we worked together. We worked together for about 4 years, I think, at the bank. Because of you, we became your agency of record. I was able to hire staff. When you moved on to Manulife, you hired us then too. When you moved on to Green Shield, you hired us there too. We've worked together over the past 20 years. But I guess the question to you is, you took a chance on me. Why?
I'll tell you why. So I had a background in marketing communications. I had learned media relations and I had flogged various products out in the marketplace. And so I knew what it took to pitch editors, to get stories. So when I met you and I saw what you were doing and that you were actually, a rock star in an agency that I didn't think was, I saw what you had. And I not only identified with you, I thought that's exactly who I want to work with. And so when you left that agency, it didn't bother me at all. I just was like, I remember saying, well, I'm going to hire her to do this. And calling you as I am, rather matter of fact, saying you can do this. And I can remember just saying to you, you can absolutely do this. And by the way, you're not alone. I'm going to help you. Like I'm going to help you. And I knew you could do it. I knew you had what it took. You'd already shown it to me. And I believed in you.
It's so interesting because I always, I'm a big supporter and believer about when it comes to women supporting women. You know, when I look at both of you, I'm like, this is a perfect example of women supporting women, and we have for 2 decades. I'm going to move it over to Kathyrn, another really strong and incredible woman. We met when you were working at Timberland. I felt instantly clicked. We had, again, also you took a chance on me. We hadn't done a lot in the fashion space. And I think at the time I had just started working with Kiehl's. It was the very, very early days of NKPR. Maybe I was in business a year and a half at that time. But Kathyrn, another one that you basically you held me to it, because we had worked together maybe 5 or 6 months, and gifting suites were becoming very, very popular. You needed to get Timberland into the hands of celebrities. That was like a big part of their strategy at the time. And Film Festival was around the corner, and you said to me, look, what are you going to do to get our product in the hands of celebrities during Film Festival? And exactly like that. That's why I'm doing this with both of you, because you're very similar, and you both of you have not met. And I said, I don't know. I'm not sure. What did you have in mind? And you said, well, look, there's a gifting suite here at Sundance. There's a gifting suite during the Oscars. Well, I need you to do a gifting suite. And you said, and if you don't do it, I'm going to find someone that will. And you said it nicer, but still. but the point was, again, it was a moment of fear, because I felt like, oh my God, can I do this? I've never done it before. And again, I said, okay, I'll do it. And you figure it out. Like, so again, you know, I guess the question for you is, what was it about, you know, me and NKPR that made you sort of, gave you the confidence to think that we could do it? We've never done it before.
That's fair, totally. I think the funny thing, and you might not know this, is when I came into Timberland, I came from a big brand that did internal PR. And so when I came to Timberland, you were already there. And in my head, I was like, we can do this internally. Like, why do we need an external
that does
PR
sound like
agency?
you. That's true.
I was like, we can own this. What could an external PR agency, do for us? And I remember sitting down with you and John Evans, and I was in this meeting, and there was just this immediate connection, like you said. And I was like, oh, this is what PR is. Like, this is like the power of, a real type agency behind the brand. So I had faith for me from the beginning. So I knew that we could figure out some kind of gifting suite, and you did it.
I mean, I would say we did it, because and I say this about both of you, any success that I had and the agency had was collective. That success did not happen because of the work we did. It happened because of the work that we all did. And when I think about the gifting suite, and we did that for years, NKPR became known. When you think TIFF, you think NKPR.
Absolutely.
I will say that has a lot to do with you, because if you did not, truly, Kathyrn, if you did not kind of push me a bit to say, I need you to do this, I wouldn't have done it. And at the same thing with you, Sarah, if you would not have sort of entrusted us to do that press conference, I'm not sure NKPR would be here today. So, if I look at the last 20 years, any success that we've had actually is collective success, because it's very much because of all the great work that we were able to do together. And when I think about the gifting suite, you and I mean, there's some really interesting memories. We slept in the suite at times, trying to get it to happen and get it together.
In the hallway
at the Windsor Arms Hotel.
Yeah.
I mean, no joke. And then doing a press interview at 6 a.m.
I thought I ruined your media day. Like, I absolutely remember that moment. I was like, I have ruined media day for NKPR, because our booth wouldn't go up this. We couldn't get in an elevator or something. There was something crazy with the booth.
It was the supplier that we used for that booth, because I think he was stoned and high before it was ever legal to be stoned and high in public. I mean, there's so many incredible stories. But maybe let's start with you, Kathyrn. What are some of the greatest sort of memories that you have of us working together?
Well, definitely all the It Lounge. I think that was just so much fun, but I also don't think that people understand how much work something like that is. Like, it is 24/7. It is a very heavy lift, but we always managed to have a really good time. We always had a great team. And I think, you know, that collaborative space was really important for the success of that lounge. So that was obviously some good times, maybe not sleeping in the hallway. That wasn't one of my best ones. And Natasha was so kind. I remember you used to let me move into your house because we didn't have budget for me to stay in a hotel and I couldn't do the commute. So I literally used to like live in your house during that time. It was so fun.
I really loved it. I felt like it was a sleepover during film festival. And remember, we would sometimes even do trips. We went to the LA. I remember.
We ended up in LA together. That was like a life-changing trip for me. We had some really deep conversations there. And
your life changed after that.
Yeah, my life did change after that. So that was a good trip. That's a memorable trip for sure. But I think a lot of it, obviously, just with how much time we spent on the lounge execution, and I think most of my good times come in there. Remember the guy, the Robin? He was the...
Oh my God, Robin Cleland. So he was a clairvoyant. And
I did not believe until Natasha made me sit down with him. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, everything he said actually came true.
Yeah.
I think you met with Robin too, didn't you?
You and I definitely have that connection as well.
Yes. Tell me about some of your favorite memories.
I was going to say most of my memories with you involve deep conversation and food. Like we'd eat out a lot.
True.
We'd eat on the road. We'd be in these I don't know, for the ski team, I think there were some weird little places we had to stay in to be around the ski team, and we would eat and talk and strategize.
It's true.
I, tore my ACL and MCL, and there we are in Whistler Village, and you're literally being my helping me stand up straight so I don't, fall and wipe out again and do the other knee. And then there's conversations about psychics. I don't know why I would get on the psychic thing with you. I was single. I wanted the world to make sense. I wanted to know if I was ever going to meet somebody fantastic. And I think we had something at Manulife, which was part of the United Way, where we had a psychic in, and I went to see her. She was at, what was that restaurant? Southern Accent.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And I started seeing her, and she started telling me about this guy that was coming, and I was like, oh yeah, that's not going to happen. And he did.
He did. That's your partner now.
That's my partner now, Lonnie Doherty. Yeah. And about his two little blonde babies that he had. So I have this big thing with you about food and laughing and strategizing, and I still remember your house, going to meet with you in your house and sitting there for an afternoon and us just doing the work, but laughing. We just laugh all the time. And, you might say it's a collective effort, but here's the thing. It was in you. If it wasn't in you, neither of us would have hired you. If we didn't see that you had the ability to deliver what we needed you to deliver, there's no way we would have, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure both of us have worked with other people who can't do it.
Yeah.
You could do it. And I believed in you, and I still believe in you, obviously. The one thing I will say about you over 20 years is you're still that person that I can call up and talk to about anything. Even though you've had this wild success and you have an office in New York and you have all these people working for you, you're still the same person as far as I'm concerned. Okay. If I need to strategize with something, and I might not even be your client, I'm your friend, I'll call you or I'll text you or whatever. We'll also have really deep life conversations,
Natasha gets you into that space, like that deep conversation.
She does, but isn't that nice?
That. It's
because we all some of us have this very surface relationship with our external suppliers, right? Yeah. Don't tell them too much, don't give them too much, don't be too much. But it started from a place of trust with you, and I knew that I could trust you because, first of all, you're in the business of trust.
Yeah.
That's what your business is.
Yeah.
And so you gave me that confidence in you that I felt like it was okay to share more of myself than just my professional life. So thank you for that.
I have to thank both of you. It's interesting. The word that comes to mind is depth. We always dug deep, whether it was professional, whether it was personal, it always felt like family. I started the agency because I wanted to pick and choose who I worked with and what I worked on. And, both of you are such a testament to that because we lived life we live life together, whether it's through work or whether it's personal, because it's one of the same for me. And so, that sort of makes me think, what do you look for then now, when you're you work with different agencies, you've had different jobs, you know, what is it that you look for when you're either looking for, what do you look for when you're hiring people, I suppose, you know, like, so if you're giving our listeners some of those lessons, what are those traits that you realize are really important in a strategic partner?
Well, you know, often the people that come in and pitch you are not the people working on your business.
Yeah.
They come in to win you over.
That's true.
And they do. But then they're not there when there's a crisis.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Even at Green Shield, when I worked with your agency and had huge confidence in the people that you had working on my campaign, if I had not so sure about this, I'm just going to call Natasha for a check-in, not to undermine you, but just
you always did. Yeah.
because I wanted to go in a different direction. Or am I right? And I could have that conversation with you. I don't know that necessarily, like I was thinking about somebody that I was working with this week, in fact, and there was something that was due, was a big project done, and they kind of lobbed the ball. And then I went back to them and said, hey, wait a minute, didn't you promise this person that you were going to help on this? Oh, yeah. Like, I didn't know that they had promised that. Mm-hmm. So I was like, you didn't do the work until I came back and asked you? You didn't think it was, you know, something you were supposed to do? So I will say that, like, for me, what's important is that authenticity, transparency, and trust. Those are the three words. And also, I'm a pretty the new skill they say for this century going forward, the soft skills, right? Empathy. Yeah. I'm in the empathy business, actually. That's my career. It's empathy and compassion. And so if I'm a pretty good judge of that emotional intelligence, and if I don't get it, I move on. It's very important to me in my team, in the people that I work with, because I'm working with equity deserving groups. That's my whole career. And if somebody doesn't get it, if it's that issue over there, then I'm not working with you.
It's so interesting you say that, because I was just asked recently, what do I look for when I'm hiring people? Because they're a huge reflection of NKPR, and we've been fortunate enough that a lot of our team members have been with us for a long time. Penny, who you work with, has been with us for 3 or 4 years. Rebecca, who's worked with me for like 12 years, Lauren, 12 years, Jess, 4 years, which is rare in our industry. Absolutely. But I look for the soft skill. I can teach people to do their job. I can't teach them to be a kind, good, empathetic human. And so those are that's what you're going to get when you're hiring NKPR, but that's not an accident. That's because we actually set out to look for people with that skill set. What about you, Kathyrn? Like, you're in a bit of a different industry.
Yeah, for sure. I think obviously all those things absolutely come into play, but I think I also look for a certain amount of compatibility with energy, I would say. Yeah. So like that agency or who I want to work with needs to have the same hustle as I do, needs to have the same risk tolerance as I do, and I really need to make sure that part is also aligned, because there's nothing more frustrating than working with someone and you're like, go, and you're excited about something, and their energy level or Natasha and I have taken lots of risks together, but we kind of were a partner in that and held hands and went through it together. So I need that in other people I work with or people I hire, is I think that energy level of a little feistiness, and that's really
scrappy.
Important to me. A little scrappy. It needs to be scrappy, and even though you do work for bigger corporations, like there's still a level, again, personally, that it's that feisty kind of energy level.
Well, both of you are like that. I agree with you. I often actually say we're an agency that's scrappy. Totally just because you give us X amount of dollars doesn't mean we're going to spend it, but I can tell you we're going to make sure if we do spend it, it's going to be spent wisely. It's going to over deliver on what your expectations are.
Totally. How many times have I come to you and said, I have this little budget, but we need to do this big thing, and you always manage to figure that out.
For sure, but I managed to figure it out because what I ask you is, well, tell me what you needed to do for you. Mm-hmm. I'm always thinking, what does success actually look like? Because if we can define what you needed to do for you, then I can make sure that I'm spending those dollars exactly the way they need to be, as opposed to a lot of agencies or people are thinking straightforward. They're like, okay, I have this amount of money, this is the program I'm going to do, not thinking about what it has to do for you. Right. And so my brain always thinks backwards. I do that professionally and personally. I'm like, okay, if this is the life I want to live, then these are the choices I need to make to actually get there, as opposed to thinking just direct. I'm going to tell you about my favorite memories with both of you.
No selective amnesia on these ones.
No, and they're no. I mean, I'll start. I'll start with Kathyrn. Both of these are life-changing memories, I would say. With you, it for sure. Even though we had incredible, memories during film festival, and had so many celebrity moments, and I loved when you would stay with me because I always felt like it was like a slumber party, and it made it so fun. But I would say it was our LA trip.
Yeah.
Because I was in LA, Kathyrn met me in Los Angeles. We spent a couple of days together. We rented a car and we had fun. We went shopping, but it was the depth in conversation.
Absolutely.
And I remember you made some life-changing decisions after that, and I'll never forget that because I was like, the people that come into your life, you don't get to choose, but you get to choose the people that stay in your life and that truly create that impact. And I'll never forget that. And we just,
it was just a good time.
It was a good time. It was a good time where there was just a lot of I felt like clarity for both of us just in life, and I value that and I cherish that because I just feel like we always have that.
Thank you.
And I would say, Sarah, with you, the Whistler trip was awesome. I remember that.
I borrowed your hair straightener, I remember.
Yes.
I think you were the first person I knew that had a hair straightener.
Yes, I used to straighten my hair heavy duty back then.
I remember.
But it was when you had called me up and you said, I'd like to meet you, and we went to the Four Seasons, if you remember that, and you gave me a book. Do you remember what the book was? You gave me a book.
Was it Love Languages?
It was Love Languages.
That's right.
Which changed my life.
Changed mine too.
Yeah. You called me up and you said, and you didn't, and at the time I was going through a major life change. My marriage had just broken up, and I remember being very emotional during that time. And you gave me this book, and you had just said, I just had a feeling that you needed this. And you said...
And a hug.
And a hug. I remember that. And that book changed my life because it helped me sort of understand why that relationship didn't work. It helped me kind of better understand what I needed from a relationship for it to work. And to this day, I revisit that book almost on a yearly basis. Because I start to think about, okay, well, if something's not working quite right, what's happening? And I actually have incorporated love languages into the workplace because I'm like, how do people need to receive information? So it's not, in life, I just now think about, it's not about the information you're pushing out, it's actually how are people receiving it. So it was a life changer for me.
The book is that you love in one of 5 different ways, or how someone shows you love. Including
and how you
your
receive
kids,
it.
And how you receive it is one of 5 ways. So I'm words of affirmation and physical touch. Well, my spouse is acts of service and quality time. You see a disconnect there? And the number one challenge we had in the early part of our relationship was that disconnect. So I sat down and said, can we talk about this? And he was on his second relationship, and he said, I think I got given that book the first time. I didn't read it. I said, well, how about this time you read it? So he read it, and I said, so what's the one thing can I do for you for an act of service? I'm not joking. This is his only response.
Yeah.
Could you make me coffee every morning? So I went out and bought a $100 programmable coffee maker, and it's still working today.
Wow.
That's
That was all he
awesome.
wanted.
It's amazing.
He said, what do you want? I said, I want you to tell me you love me every day and give me a hug. So he does. How simple is that?
And how long have you been together?
15 years.
Good for you.
See, that's what it is. And
Yeah.
so that book, and in fact, when Eric and I met, one of the first things he asked me was, what's your love language? I'm like, oh, did you read that book? He's like, yeah. And so it was kind of interesting because, and I revisit it because sometimes you know how someone wants to receive love, but you kind of forget. And so on vacations, often I take it with me and I
That's smart. I
reread
used it
it.
on my stepkids as well. And here's the hilarious thing, which I don't know if you know. I got ordained to be a wedding officiant because my niece got married last summer. The book that I give every couple when they get married now is Love Languages.
I need to get this book.
Oh, you need to get this book. You absolutely do. I might have 2 upstairs and I will give you one. It is, I think every couple should read it, and I agree with you. I actually created like a similar process, but for the office.
Yeah, smart.
I was going to
how
say,
do
I love
people-
that you brought it into the office environment.
Smart.
So,
I did,
yeah,
because
very
it's
smart.
like, how do people receive information?
Yeah.
Like, how do they want to be spoken to? What actually
Absolutely.
motivates and inspires them? And
Yeah.
so I look at that across the board, and I think that's why our turnover rate is so low, because I'm always thinking about them and how they need to receive information as opposed to me and how I need to push it out.
And not
it's a game
everybody is
changer.
verbal, right? There's some people,
Yeah.
like my youngest stepdaughter does not want that attention. Don't tell her in a group of people how awesome she is. She can't take it.
No.
You know, whereas I'm like, oh yeah, please tell me. You know, so I've used it in life exactly the same way you have. I mean, I have team members that I know right now that, you know, they expect verbal affirmation of you're doing a good job. You just see the smile on the face, and then the others, you know, they don't want it. So show them another way. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with you. That's very smart of you to do
Yeah.
that. You need to write the book Love Languages for the Workplace.
Yeah, exactly.
You and Gary Chapman need to do a
You're
co-authorship.
That's true.
You're
That's
onto
true.
something there.
What do you think is the greatest learning in the last 20 years, because we've known each other that long, both of you, is through our relationship?
Oh my gosh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it because I'm like, you know, if you think about 20 years of being in business and in life, you're learning from each other. And so...
For me, I would say the biggest change, of course, we started in 2002.
Yeah, we did.
You know, social media, what that has done to brands and people. Cancel culture?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Would you ever have thought
I would have
Never.
never thought
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
right? And I was just saying, was it Yannick that I just
Yeah,
met?
yeah.
I was talking to him about that. I was like, you were the brand guy for CIBC after I left, and you actually did a great job. And I said, there was a time when celebrity didn't want to sell a product. That was not good for them. And it was the same with companies and causes, right? You know, you have a charity now that you work on yourself. It's your mission outside of your business. You know, that association, right? Brand, causes and companies and people, you know, you can be made or broken on social media now. We didn't have any of that. We were trying to find celebrities to endorse, you know, Run for the Cure, Cirque du Soleil, the ski team or whatever.
We just started with email. If you remember, 2002 was
Yeah.
just like the beginning of email.
Completely.
Social media didn't really hit till 2010.
No.
No.
And how
and the
you
power
can,
behind it. I
oh my
think,
God.
like,
And you were a guru. Like how many times did I call you saying, can you tell me how to use this Twitter thing? I don't know how to use it. Could you show me how to use Facebook, Instagram? What,
Yeah.
you know, what is my tile? Help me. Could you help me? You're like, yeah, come into the office. I'll teach you.
Yeah.
I remember that. I mean, for me, it was always about be open to change. Whereas a lot of people were afraid of it, and certainly people in my industry thought it was just going to go away. And I just thought, I want to try this thing. I remember when I started my first social media account, which was Twitter, because I started with Twitter and I loved it. It was, I was lying in bed and I'm like, what's this Twitter thing? Okay, I'll start. And NKPR was taken and Natasha K was taken. So I'm like, ooh, I'll just do Natasha NKPR as my name. It just stuck, right, for, you know, the last 12 years. But it was, I just thought you have to try it.
You had a lot of
Yeah.
55-year-old men interested in what you had to say. That's who I just did. I just taught a class on Twitter and I was like, oh yeah, that's the demographic. Okay.
That's funny. That's so funny.
I do think also on top of that is like the data and the metrics that you can get from, like, it's so powerful now. I mean, looking back at kind of what we were looking at,
I know.
you brought in some old stuff, and like in there isn't impressions, and there isn't like that reach information, you know, that we have access to today, and it's so powerful to be able to really, you know, look at the output of programs and campaigns and be able to figure out what worked, what didn't, what you need to do differently. And so, you know, that data, I think, is really changed how we think and what we do, for sure.
It's interesting with Sorrel in particular. So we went through COVID, but we still did, like, we were in lockdown, but we still did really creative campaigns. We did photographer campaign, digital programs with the photographer through Zoom, and we created these
Very
incredible influencer programs during COVID. And I think that's the point. I think, you know, certainly what COVID taught us was you need to pivot. And I think about the last 20 years, that's a big part of it. It's like we pivoted every time.
Yeah.
And you have to be open to change. If you want to be, I think, successful in any industry, you can't be rigid. You have to be sort of open to what is happening in the world.
For sure.
Is the word malleable? I guess be a bit malleable.
For sure. I mean, I think I look back and, I'm pretty settled in my career. I love what I do. But a few years ago, I was like, geez, like, this digital is just changing the world. So I went back to school. Like, I went back to University of Toronto and took, like, a digital marketing management program just because I knew that I needed to keep up with it and be open to, how this is changing the industry. So I don't think, I think there's always the opportunity to keep learning. And
I did that too. I was like a lifelong learner, always taking classes like I just did. I did websites when they first started.
Yeah.
And I just did DEI at Stanford. I mean, I think
cool.
you have to pivot. You have to understand what's coming.
Totally.
But the other thing I wanted to talk about, which is something you brought up earlier on, was actually risk, right? The one thing that I didn't early in my career think about, and I actually had a female board chair at Green Shield who said, I want you to start introducing the risk of doing or not doing this in your briefing notes for the board. And I was like, well, yeah, I guess I've kind of been doing that for a while, but I never formalize it. And it's true. We don't, you watch young people with social media and you think, wow, I'm so lucky I didn't have my young life out there for the world to see, because who would hire me if they saw, some of the stuff that I did? Now, it wasn't that bad, but, But it's true about risk, the concept of risk, and we have our lives so out there.
Yes.
Like, what are the risks of everything? And during the pandemic, this cancel culture, I have to say, it's been a bit mesmerizing. Like, who's canceled now and why and what did they do? Huh? What? Huh?
Absolutely.
And so risk is really important. And I would say you and I would have these conversations and you would tell me the risk of doing it or not doing it, because I would have, an abundance of ideas, and you might say, and that's where trust comes in again. You would say, I don't think we should do that because of this, and I'd go, oh yeah, I guess you're right. Or I would say, I really want to do this, and you'd be like, yeah, I could see that working. So I think, risk is another thing, and also fearlessness, right? You're fearless. Yeah. You will pivot, but you will calculated risks and be fearless about it. When you say you're going to do it, you do it.
That's true. Because I don't believe in failure. I believe that no matter what comes out of it, I've learned something. Mm-hmm. And so learning, you can't progress, and there is no growth unless you've learned something. Mm-hmm. It's when you learn that you actually have the biggest growth. So I really believe in that. And it's interesting with young people, and what you were talking about with social media. I wish that they would teach social media in school, because what young people don't realize is once you post online, you are a brand. And so what is the best representation of who you are? Absolutely. And so I wish that the curriculum would change a bit to acknowledge where we are in the world right now.
I just said that. I just had this conversation because they've announced some new curriculum in the Ontario schools. And in my head, I was like, I wonder if they are going to start talking about like digital space and how to, how they can navigate that. Because it's true. I'm sorry. If I'm looking at hiring someone, the first place I'm going is to Instagram and TikTok and checking them out. Like, that is where I get and figure out kind of that vibe of that person. So I say that to my stepkids all the time. They grew up in that age, and I am all over them about what they're posting.
Well, because it shows your judgment. Like, 1000%. And you're hiring people, not like we talk about soft skills. Judgment is a soft skill. Yeah. And so it's the first thing I look at as well. Yeah. And I think that's really important. I always end the podcast with, and you guys know a lot about me, and ask me anything. So is there anything you feel you don't know about me, or anything that you feel you've always wanted to ask me but you never have? Now is your time. And I've had fun. I've had interesting questions. I've had the why do you wear black question. I've had but I've also had more in-depth questions around, why did you start the agency and whatnot. So anything you want.
I learned a lot about you as I texted you, 6 months ago on that TED Talk. Like, I had no idea about your family background.
That's interesting.
I just knew you professionally, right? And that was really eye-opening to me. I didn't know about your family, or
That
so
TED Talk was really important to me, because when I was asked to do it, I wanted to really think about, okay, if I'm going to do a TED Talk, I feel like I need to offer something to the world that is meaningful. And so when I thought about the notion of showing up, that was really powerful for me. And so both of you are showing up for me right now. You showed up for me 20 years ago. We show up for each other. That is very, very important. And so that's why I did it on that. And so it brought me back to being an immigrant.
yeah, amazing. So let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
As the mother of a young man,
Mm-hmm.
how do you impart to him, because they always say how you show love, right, is how the other person sees you giving love. And as a loving woman who is self-made, entrepreneurial, what do you tell Justin about respect for women, or what has he learned, and how does he treat women in his life, and what kind of man will he be if he has children that are women? Like, what do you think he's learned from you?
So, and I mean, that's a great question. I would say and Justin is going to be on the podcast for exactly that reason, because I want to ask him that question. But I would say my goal, and I had him when I was 18, I was a child. I didn't know much about raising a child, but I knew that I wanted to raise a really good partner for somebody. That was important for me. And so I hope that what he, and I can see it in him, he's respectful of women. He's watched his mother work really hard I've worked really hard to be me. And so I think for him, my hope is that in a relationship, he's going to be respectful, admire someone for their strength and character, and not put them down for it, which I think a lot of men do, unfortunately, for their own ego. And so for me, I mean, and just be kind. His girlfriend works for me, so I get the opportunity to kind of see all of that. But I would hope that my greatest wish is that he's a good partner for somebody.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's a really-
so that was
yeah.
always important for me.
That's
I didn't know
amazing.
much at 18, but I knew that.
Well, I haven't seen him in a long time, but the young man that I have interacted with is definitely that.
Thank you.
So
for
good
saying
job.
that. Thanks.
That's a tough question, because
You know a lot about me.
I know a
Yeah.
lot about you, and I'm not so other than I really want to see your closet.
Oh yeah. I'll show you my closet.
I've seen it.
I'm like, yeah, see, I'm like, that I would like. I think the one of the words that I would use to describe you is just kind. Like, you are just one of the kindest individuals that I know. But I also know, and I can only imagine some of the experiences that you've had have really tested that kindness. So I guess my question would be, how do you manage that when you're in a position, especially as a woman, running your own agency? I can only imagine some of the conversations that come up. So how do you manage that kindness and being true to yourself, but also standing up for yourself, and making sure that people know that you are the powerhouse that you are?
I mean, that's a great question. I'm only kind to people that deserve it. If you don't deserve my kindness, you're not getting it. And so I would say I'm kind to everybody for sure, until I'm not. And I don't think anybody should ever mistake my kindness for weakness. And so there have been many times where I've fired clients because I just don't think they deserve my kindness, and they don't deserve to be part of our roster, and they don't deserve my team. And so I think that to answer your question, I mean, I think that did answer your question, but it kind of goes back to the beginning of this podcast. I don't want to work with assholes, and I just want to work with people that I get to pick and choose, where our values are aligned. My goal was never to grow a huge company. My goal was just, I want to keep doing what I love to do, and work with young people to be able to help them become who they're meant to become. As far as my team. And so, I continue to do that. But a lot of people mistake kindness for weakness, and they shouldn't do that. Because you could be a kind and good person until you're not.
Yeah.
And that's a privilege that they get. It's not like a given sort of right that they can just treat you any way that they want. And you do see that. And it happens with men, it happens with women. Sometimes women are harder on women than men ever could be, which I'm hoping will change. But it hasn't. It hasn't yet. I want to thank both of you so much for being part of my personal journey, my professional journey. I'm so grateful, truly, to both of you. And having, being able to just talk about the great impact you both have had on my life makes me very emotional, actually. Thank you. Thank you so much, both.
Thank you.
So nice to catch up with both Kathyrn and Sarah, and I'm going to plug it again and again and again. Read the book, Love Languages. It will change your life. I always love hearing from you. Feel free to DM me at NatashaNKPR, and don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review and rating. Until next time.